I was fighting a murder case, and he was out on bail from his case. So naturally, we look like America's Most Wanted.
Your ass for the touch to leave.
Snoop Dogg's life at 54 took a turn no one saw coming. Behind the iconic sunglasses and laid-back West Coast persona, Snoop's life has been far from easy.
You ever afraid of being on death row sometimes?
Never. I was afraid when I wasn't on death row.
Right. Explain.
Because it was death threats, it was like where they was coming to get at me.
From a 1993 murder trial and fights with death row records to adult entertainment projects, social media feuds, and sexual allegations, his career has constantly been under the spotlight. He's also faced the heartbreaking deaths of his grandson, mother, and cousin, alongside public feuds and business struggles.
Snoop Dogg's grandson has passed away at 10 days old. The 47-year-old rapper's son shared the tragic news on Instagram that his son Kai Love has died.
Let's start at the beginning, in Long Beach, where his early choices set the stage for everything that followed. Snoop Dogg was born Calvin Broadus Jr. on October 20th, 1971, in Long Beach, California. Growing up, life wasn't easy. His mother, Beverly Tate, was a major influence, but his father wasn't really in the picture. Snoop grew up around the challenges of urban life, exposed to gangs and street violence from a young age. Music became his escape, and he found rhythm in rapping and freestyling while navigating a neighborhood that could be unforgiving.
For me to cleanse out my drip, so I ain't holding nothing back. And once again,
By the early 1990s, Snoop was starting to get noticed locally. He had a laid-back voice and a unique flow that made people pay attention. Then, in 1992, everything changed when Dr. Dre discovered him. Snoop was featured on Dre's debut single Deep Cover, and later on the legendary album The Chronic. That was the start of a career that would define West Coast rap.
What brought you to Snoop?
It was incredible. It was incredible. My baby bro, Warren G,
Yes, sir.
he actually brought me the a cassette tape, and I popped it in to listen to it like, whoa, I need to meet him.
So I called him, and he was like, what's up? I was like, I want to talk to you.
But fame didn't come without drama. In 1993, Snoop was involved in a shooting incident in Los Angeles that ended with the death of rival gang member Philip Woldemariam. Snoop and his bodyguard had followed Woldemariam after an altercation, and his bodyguard fired the shot. Snoop turned himself in, facing first-degree murder charges. It became one of the most publicized rap trials of the era. By 1996, Snoop and his bodyguard were acquitted.
By the defendant, McKinley Lee, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree in violation of Penal Code Section 187, a felony, is charged in count 1 of the information, dated February 13, 1996.
Even though he was cleared, the trial left a mark. Suddenly, Snoop wasn't just a rapper, he was a public figure, entangled in violence, gang culture, and media scrutiny. Fans were divided. Some thought he was a hero, others saw him as dangerous. The experience hardened him and gave him a story that would follow his music for years. Amid all this, Snoop released his debut album, Doggy Style, in 1993. Produced by Dr. Dre, it was a sensation. The album hit #1 on the Billboard 200 and the top R&B hip-hop albums charts. Selling almost 1 million copies in the first week, it went quadruple platinum by 1994. Songs like Gin and Juice and Who Am I? What's My Name? Became anthems.
something for the G's and make a few ends as I breeze through.
By 1994, Snoop had also released the soundtrack for the short film Murder Was the Case, in which he starred. Then came his second album, Thaw Dogfather, in 1996, which also debuted at #1 and went double platinum. His gangsta rap persona was solidified. The laid-back voice, the chronic references, the gang affiliations, it all became Snoop Dogg. The public saw him as talented but dangerous, fun but controversial. His persona, shaped by his upbringing, early legal battles, and music, would define how fans and critics perceived him for decades. His voice wasn't just music. It was an identity rooted in a world of fame, fear, and survival. After being acquitted in 1996, Snoop Dogg returned to the music scene, but things were already shifting around him. Death Row Records, the label that had launched him, was under pressure.
Everybody started to leave.
Corrupt left, Daz left, Nate left, Rage left, everybody kind of left.
That was the end of Death Row Records.
The West Coast gangster rap scene was at its peak, and Snoop was right at the center. His second album, Thaw Dogfather, had proven he wasn't a one-hit wonder, but there were tensions behind the scenes. Money, creative control, and power struggles were brewing, and Snoop was feeling the strain. By the late 1990s, Snoop began to realize he wasn't getting the respect or the earnings he deserved from Death Row. He had been underpaid, and he felt creatively stifled. Sources at the time reported that he saw the label as exploitative and that he wasn't in control of his own career. In 1998, Snoop made a major decision. He left Death Row. The move shocked fans, but it was a necessary step for him to take control of his music and his image. After leaving, he signed with No Limit Records, the label run by Master P. Between 1998 and 2000, he released 3 albums: Da Game Is To Be Sold, Not To Be Told, No Limit Top Dog, and Thaw Last Meal.
When I left Death Row Records, I signed with No Limit Records, which was the hottest rap label in the industry.
These albums gave him more freedom, but they also came with challenges. The sound and style were different, and fans had to adjust. Still, Snoop proved he could survive outside the shadow of Death Row. At the same time, Snoop began exploring other ventures. In 2001 and 2002, he launched adult entertainment projects like Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style and Snoop Dogg's Hustlah's Diary of a Pimp. These projects blended hip-hop with adult content, and while they made headlines, they also sparked controversy.
By the time we got to Doggy Style, it was more about, I know what this dude is about. I know what this album should be about. It should be some pimp, extraordinary, fly, dope rap, hardcore.
Allegations of participant coercion and criticism over the content's nature followed him. This period reinforced his reputation for pushing boundaries and living a life of excess. Even as controversies swirled, Snoop was expanding his influence. He appeared in films such as Training Day in 2001, showcasing his ability to cross over into acting. At the same time, he maintained his public persona as a laid-back, weed-friendly rapper, but his image also began attracting legal attention.
What you need, homie?
Crack. $20?
Crack.
Yeah.
Drug and firearm charges were a recurring theme in Snoop's life, stretching from the 1990s into the 2000s. For example, in 2015, he was detained in Sweden for suspected drug use, though he was not charged. These incidents created a tension between his brand as a marijuana advocate and the law.
Snoop Dogg piss-tested in Sweden over DUI stop. On Saturday night, the Dogfather himself got pulled over by the cops in Uppsala, Sweden.
So we're getting sweated by the police right now.
This period also cemented Snoop's persona as the ultimate gangsta rapper. His lyrics referenced chronic, street life, and gang culture, which excited fans but fueled controversy. Critics accused him of glorifying a dangerous lifestyle, while supporters praised his authenticity. The tension between fame, controversy, and creative control defined his late 1990s era. By 2001, Snoop was proving that he could adapt. Even with adult entertainment projects and legal issues, he continued making music, acting, and building his brand. He was navigating fame, controversy, and personal ambitions, showing resilience and business sense. The stage was set for the next phase of his career, where he would expand beyond music into television, entrepreneurship, and public controversies.
And it opened some criticism on how could he have an album cover that looks like this, and there's a woman bent over and it's referring to the sex content inside of it.
Leaving death row was more than a career move. It was about control and identity. Balancing controversial projects, legal troubles, and artistic freedom set the pattern for his later years. Fans saw the music, but behind the scenes, Snoop was learning the costs of fame, the dangers of public perception, and the effort needed to maintain a career on his own terms. As Snoop Dogg's career expanded into music, movies, and television, life outside the spotlight started to bring serious challenges. The 2000s weren't just about albums and acting. There were personal losses and public conflicts that began shaping his story in ways fans didn't always see. One of the early personal struggles involved ongoing legal troubles. Over the years, Snoop faced multiple arrests and charges for marijuana possession and firearms. These incidents weren't just minor inconveniences. They reinforced the image of Snoop as a trouble magnet and kept him in the headlines, sometimes overshadowing his work. Meanwhile, family life was not without heartbreak. Snoop and his high school sweetheart, Shantae Taylor, filed for divorce after years of marriage. The news shocked fans. The couple had 3 children together, and their love story was part of Snoop's public image. Court filings cited irreconcilable differences, and tabloids painted the split as proof that fame had broken another family. But just a year later, the two reconciled, renewing their vows in a private ceremony. Snoop later admitted that his infidelity and lifestyle nearly destroyed his marriage. Though not all events were public at the time, Snoop experienced a series of deeply painful personal losses. His father had passed earlier, leaving an emotional gap that Snoop would later reflect on. These kinds of familial pressures, layered on top of his public scrutiny, created a complex emotional environment. Fans might have seen the flashy lifestyle, but behind the scenes, Snoop was navigating grief, loss, and the responsibilities of raising a family while managing fame. During this period, Snoop's public image also faced tests on social media and in celebrity feuds. In 2014 and 2015, he had a very public Twitter feud with Iggy Azalea. His posts included offensive content, and though he apologized later, the incident reinforced criticism of his sometimes outdated views.
Snoop Dogg totally apologizes to Iggy Azalea.
Say you with the wrong and your better check you for what I do.
Around the same time, Snoop made dismissive comments about Caitlyn Jenner on Instagram, which were widely called transphobic. These moments painted him as someone struggling to adjust to shifting societal norms. Fans who had loved him for decades were now confronted with a side of Snoop that was controversial and, to some, troubling. Even though Snoop's professional life was busy, he acted in films like Training Day and continued releasing albums. These personal and public challenges created friction between his persona and his legacy. Some fans saw the comments and feuds as part of the old gangsta rapper image. Amid the controversies, Snoop also had moments of public generosity and cultural visibility. He hosted TV shows, appeared in commercials, and was becoming a recognizable figure beyond music. Yet the contrast between these mainstream ventures and the edgy, often controversial aspects of his persona created tension.
Steamroller was in fact what any good parent who was opposed to the filth in some of these records would do. They'd take these things from their children and throw them in the garbage can.
It was clear that Snoop was balancing multiple identities: the music legend, the media personality, the family man, and the controversial public figure. The combination of personal tragedies, legal pressures, and social missteps shaped how the public perceived him and tested his ability to reinvent himself. Fans could see his talent and charisma, but they were also witnessing a man grappling with grief, societal expectations, and the consequences of a high-profile lifestyle. By the end of this period, Snoop had survived multiple storms. He was still creating, still performing, and still finding ways to adapt. But the personal and public struggles from these years would linger, influencing decisions in the next stage of his life and career. By the mid-2000s, Snoop Dogg had already cemented himself as a hip-hop icon, but the next chapter of his life was about control, entrepreneurship, and legacy. After decades in the music industry, he was no longer just the rapper with the laid-back flow. He was thinking bigger, turning his name and influence into businesses, ownership stakes, and cultural power moves. One of the most notable shifts came in 2015, when Snoop continued building his brand outside music. He was involved in cooking shows, digital media projects, and even cannabis businesses. This wasn't just a money grab, it was an effort to take control over his image and revenue streams. Fans could see him on TV cooking with Martha Stewart, and the contrast between his gangsta rap persona and a family-friendly cooking star surprised a lot of people. Yet, it also showed Snoop's ability to pivot, balancing his established brand with mainstream opportunities.
Shank, let me see, what's that?
That's a pot.
So anything like that a little bit dangerous?
At the same time, his legal and public controversies didn't completely disappear. Snoop occasionally faced criticism for old lyrics, social media missteps, or comments on political and social issues. Even as a media personality, these incidents reminded fans and industry insiders that his past still carried weight. The public continued to scrutinize him, often mixing admiration for his career with judgment for his earlier and sometimes ongoing controversies.
Steamroller was in fact what any good parent who was opposed to the filth in some of these records would do. They'd take these things from their children and throw them in the garbage can.
In 2022, Snoop made a move that truly brought his career full circle. He acquired Death Row Records. This was the label where he had first risen to fame in the early 1990s. Producing Doggy Style and working closely with Dr. Dre. Death Row had been central to his story, but also a source of legal battles, contract disputes, and frustration over control. By owning the label, Snoop wasn't just reclaiming a piece of history, he was gaining a platform to shape the music industry on his own terms. This acquisition symbolized more than business savvy. It was a statement of empowerment and control after years of feeling exploited by labels.
I own Death Row, so I do what I want to do.
Around the same time, he faced other business challenges that made headlines. Snoop and Master P sued Walmart and post-consumer brands over their cereal brand, alleging that it was deliberately obstructed in distribution. The lawsuit became a conversation about racial equity, industry power, and the difficulties even major celebrities face when entering the business world. For Snoop, it was a reminder that being a household name doesn't automatically translate to smooth sailing in corporate ventures. Even amid business moves, Snoop continued to lose loved ones, intensifying the emotional complexity of this period. He experienced the death of his grandson, Kai Love, in 2019, which shook him deeply.
Snoop Dogg's grandson has passed away at 10 days old. The 47-year-old rapper's son shared the tragic news on Instagram that his son Kai Love has died.
Just 2 years later, his mother Beverly Tate passed away, and in early 2024, his brother Bing Worthington died. These personal tragedies, stacked on top of professional highs and public scrutiny, created a mixture of grief, reflection, and urgency to protect his legacy.
Snoop Dogg's grandson has passed away at 10 days old. The 47-year-old rapper.
Ownership, lawsuits, and personal loss tested him in ways fame alone never could. Fans could admire his strategic moves, but they could also see the human side of grief and struggle behind the headlines. By 2022, Snoop had evolved into someone balancing past controversies, business ventures, and personal life. The stage was set for the next chapter, where public scrutiny and cultural reckoning would become impossible to ignore. By 2022, Snoop Dogg was a name recognized around the world. His influence stretched from music and television to business ventures, but with that fame came intense scrutiny. One of the most serious challenges in this period was a assault lawsuit filed against him. A woman alleged that Snoop had assaulted her back in 2013 at an after-party or concert setting.
That case, pretty much went to the wayside. Do you think this is a common trend that you see, that people are just clout chasing now, these celebrities, rather than it being some real accusation?
The lawsuit immediately drew attention, reminding fans and critics alike that past actions, whether proven or not, can resurface in ways that affect reputation and legal standing. Lots of fans think that this case could reshape how the public sees him, even though the details are contested. At the same time, Snoop's social media presence continued to spark controversy. He had previously engaged in public feuds, like the one with Iggy Azalea in 2014 to 2015, posting offensive content and later apologizing.
Snoop Dogg totally apologizes to Iggy Azalea.
Say you with the wrong and your better check you for what I do.
Even years later, comments about movies, LGBTQ representation, and political events drew backlash. For instance, performing at a crypto ball tied to Donald Trump's inauguration in 2025 led to debates about his political alignment. And after the release of Lightyear, some of his remarks about LGBTQ representation reignited criticism, even though he later collaborated with GLAAD on a song.
Papa Snoop, how she have a baby with a woman? She a woman. Oh, I didn't come in for this. Just came to watch the goddamn movie. Hey man, watch the movie. So it's like, I'm scared to go to the movies now.
Beyond the Death Row acquisition, the lawsuit over the cereal brand with Master P highlighted larger issues of distribution, racial equity, and corporate gatekeeping. Fans and observers noted how even a superstar with decades of experience faces systemic challenges in business. Some conspiracy theories online suggested intentional obstruction, though nothing is fully proven. Still, it painted a picture of Snoop dealing with complex, high-stakes battles beyond the studio and stage. In addition to the death of his loved ones, these losses came on top of decades of public controversies, legal battles, and media scrutiny, showing that even the biggest stars carry deeply personal grief that often goes unseen. All of this created a tension between his past and present. Snoop had spent decades cultivating a gangsta rap image full of edgy lyrics, drug references, and controversial behavior. Now, as a media personality, entrepreneur, and family man, he was trying to navigate public expectations while reconciling earlier actions and statements.
I say, with my grandkids, I do a lot of things that I didn't do for my kids, and I'm more, softer on them.
Some fans wonder whether his legacy can fully shift or if the weight of past controversies will always linger. So far, Snoop has done well with managing reputation, pursuing business, enduring personal loss, and confronting a world that examines every word and action.